Welcome to the Mojo Moments. It is me, Master Mojo, and today's episode of this podcast, we're going to be talking about the situation with the teacher shortage and why it's such a major problem and an epidemic of sorts. Like first and foremost, teaching itself has been a complicated. Let's leave it at that because once upon a time it was a respected field where, okay, you're a teacher, you know your craft, you pass down your knowledge to the next generation of students, and hope and pray they gain that knowledge. But now it has devolved into such a bad and frustrating career because you go into it, especially this new generation of teachers now, which I was one of them, and we'll get to that story in a minute. But teaching today just isn't worth it because now you have to either go through ridiculous tests that doesn't make any sense just to get a certificate. You have to pay $150 to take the exam, and the questions you see on there just don't add up, and you get nothing out of that because the test itself is pretty much impossible to pass because I took it 3 times and was out of $450 doing that, and it went nowhere. But I found an alternative to get my certificate, but and I managed to be certified in both social studies and English. And yet, when you have a degree, have a clean background, and also have good credentials on top of that, you interview at these schools, but somehow that doesn't impress them because apparently they want something more. I'm not sure what these schools want, but once you get in there, you're treated like trash by both the faculty and the students. Because going by my experience, I was hired at Canopy Oaks Elementary School. I interviewed with this guy named Clayton Cloud. He's the principal. Dude was probably the most two-faced person I have ever met because he tricked me into thinking I was going to teach social studies. Fast forward a week and a half into the school year, he says, "No, you're not going to teach social studies. You're going to be an ELA teacher." And not even like ELA, but he told me I was just going to be a straight up reading teacher, not even teaching nouns and pronouns, sentence structure, just reading. So that means going and reading the issued textbooks and following the stories from there. So I do that. I try to make, the classroom fun. Students barely listened. All they wanted to do was play around, be loud, nonstop talk, and really use the stupid 6-7 trend. Which, uh, seriously, what is the point of that? Like, for real? And they don't want to learn. They don't want to listen, and that's why I feel teaching is not worth it at this point because you're doing everything you can do to try to teach the subject to hard-headed kids who lack discipline and lack focus, and I blame the parents for that. But it's a no-go. Then you have a principal who's constantly on your back because that was Clayton Cloud. He was constantly popping up in my classroom criticizing, "Oh, you can't do this." Because I was using Kahoot, as I have a gaming style teaching, so I was using Kahoot, Jeopardy, using that within my teaching them figurative language, um, main idea and supporting details, or central idea as they like to call it now. from the story and quizzing them on that before I test them. So one minute he says, don't do it. He sees how effective it is. Then he goes and tells me to do it again. So he was just extremely indecisive. And one minute he sees me trying to get a hold of the class because they're eating, and there's like 25 kids in this whole classroom, and I really protest the idea of mainstreaming. This is no offense to any, ESC kid out there, but there's a reason why ESC classes were created in the first place, and it doesn't need to be combined with the regular standards and regular function of a classroom. Like, ESC classes really need to return. Whoever thought it was a good idea to mainstream students, well, you're a giant idiot, okay? Because that's one of the biggest reasons why people don't want to go into teaching, or they end up quitting, because it just leads to stress, anger, sadness, and resentment, and you're not making the job worth it. On top of the salary, $47,000 a year. For what teachers have to put up with on a daily basis, it needs to go up about 5 or 8 thousand. And yet you want to complain about, no one wants to teach. Well, guess what? There are too many red flags and flaws that not many people want to make it a long-term deal and rather find some other place to work. Because I had to deal with students, and this is fifth grade, by the way, who couldn't who could barely read, couldn't really write, because I gave them, short 2 paragraph essays every morning. And only, I would say, 5 of them, because I had 2 sets of classes. One class was probably, my homeroom, my morning class was a little more advanced than my afternoon class. But my afternoon class was just bottom of the barrel kind of students. They could barely form a paragraph, and for some reason they considered just 2 sentences a paragraph. Couldn't even elaborate on it. Like, one topic I gave them: if you could have any superpower, what would it be, and would you be a hero or a villain? Most of them couldn't even give detail a detailed story about that, and it's heartbreaking. And the spelling was horrible, by the way, which Mr. Cloud didn't want me to teach spelling either, despite the very obvious lack of skill in spelling. Because I'm wondering, how are these kids in fifth grade, about to be in middle school very soon, and don't know how to spell or write a full essay, because they're in trouble when those exams come. So yeah, and they gave me, and this one guy named Dan, Daniel Ring. He had kids who wanted to learn and actually listen, and I didn't have to scream at the top of my voice just to get them to do that. And they were way better to me than my actual students, and that really, stuck with me. Like, they intentionally gave me the bottom of the barrel students, made me leave a very good security job, by the way, and now I'm being pressured to make a miracle here for something that these students should already be at a, acceptable level. So, cutting count back on him, constantly would question my methods, and ask, well, Mr. Smith, do you feel like you can continue doing this job? And what kind of thing is that to ask someone? Like, dude, you called me, wanted to hire me for this job. I already was employed, and I left a good security job that treated me way better, and the pay was pretty much on the same rate as this teaching job to be here. And you're asking me, do I feel like I can continue doing this job? And he asked me that, I would say, well, 5 times actually. He was trying to goad me into quitting, which, no, I wasn't going to do that. And why? So you can get off scot free? I don't think so. So it really just continued to be a headache. I was not happy at all. He had me have sessions with the reading coach, which, because he thought I can do my job. And on top of that, he sent me to a workshop for 2 days. So I kind of saw the writing on the wall at that point. He didn't want me there. He had a complete 180 with his personality and attitude. And he's a white guy, looks like the Geico caveman. I mean, and I'm not just exaggerating. This guy really does look like the Geico caveman. So, come second week of September, I get done with bus duty, walk into my classroom to pack up, and when I walk into my classroom, I see him, and for some reason, the reading coach was there. Which, okay, why is she here? Because she's a reading coach. She's not an assistant principal or anything. So he gives me my letter of termination. He said, "Well, Mr. Smith, you're no longer going to be a teacher at Canopy Oaks." And I just said, okay. No argument. Didn't ask why, because at that point, I just plain didn't care. I didn't like the guy. Students weren't making it worth it. And I was pretty much done after that. So I gave him my teacher's badge, and that was it. He completely wasted my time and manipulated me into, teaching very low level students. And I have a master's in history, by the way. So when I thought I was going to teach social studies, which was my goal, but now I'm finding out that I'm just going to be a lousy reading teacher. And that's no offense to all the teachers who teach reading. You're masters of your craft. So I give my props to you. But that is not what I profess in. That is not where my heart was in. So my heart is in history. So that's what I was expecting. And this guy tricked me into this job and fired me. So this goes back to my whole point of teachers. Look, and this is a message to every school system in America. I don't know how far this video is going to go, or who's going to watch this, but here's a message. Look, make teaching worth it. All right? Make the salary higher. Treat teachers with respect, and actually do something with these bad, hard-headed kids. And that goes for the parents too, because you're a big reason why they act the way they do. So, and as for these principals, get a grip, because you want people to be happy and not complain about it. And you got the government complaining about a teacher shortage, Well, guess what? It's one of the most frustrating jobs that I have had and what anyone has. And that's why people are leaving or just plain not wasting their time with it because what is the positive here? You have to be stressed out every freaking day and just deal with nonsense. Like Alice in Wonderland kind of nonsense. And you got to deal with idiotic administrators and lousy kids who are so far behind and don't want to learn anything. And that's why teaching has devolved in such a low level, nonsensical job. It's not as respected as it used to. You're basically treated like a slave. And if you're a new teacher, well, you're on the chopping block. So that just goes to show. And it's something that I just really come to the point where I'm not gonna waste my time again. You go to these interviews and you never hear from them again because I actually interviewed at a high school, Gaston County High School, 3 times, and nothing came from that. 3 interviews. How do you interview the same person 3 times and never get back with them when they have all the credentials that you could hope for that most people don't have, but you don't give them a call back? So that's just something I just have to make very clear about. Uh, Let me know in the comments what you think about it, and that'll be it for the Mojo moment. So let's just think about it for a minute. Teaching will probably never be the same again or respected, both for people who that go in it and in a third party view of it. Students need to act right. Administrators need to actually step in and help. That's why you're administrators, you're the overseers of the school, and make the idea of teaching great again. So subscribe, and Master Mojo will get back to you next time.